This conference will now be recorded.
All right. So, any questions before I get started? Any questions from yesterday's class before I get started? So, we were mostly looking at what is an Azure tenant. How do you go and create something called as an Azure tenant out here? So, let's just revise that and let's get started from there. So, in order to create something called as an Azure tenant, you firstly need to go into portal.azure.com. This is the website what you go into. And once you go into portal.azure.com, Microsoft is going to ask you, do you already have an account with, let's say, me, or if you want to create something and you create a new account. Again, if you already have a Microsoft account, good enough, you can go ahead and let's say register the same account out there. Or if you have a Gmail account with you, or if you do not have a Gmail, if you want to create an Outlook account, you can just go ahead create an Outlook account. Or if you already have a Gmail, you can take that Gmail and integrate it with something called as portal.azure.com out here as such. As and when you do that, Azure gives you something called as a tenant ID. So Azure tells you that you know what, you are the tenant, meaning you are, let's say, the tenant to that, let's say, that particular Azure cloud. You're not really buying anything, but you are renting services, and Azure gives you this particular ID called as a tenant ID out here. Again, if I go to myportal.azure.com, now this is myportal.azure.com. So I said portal.azure.com, went into this one, and I've logged in inside this. And if I go into something called as an Azure Active Directory, we'll talk about what Azure Active Directory really is, what is this particular service. If I just click on this one, I have something called what? Tenant ID. This is a unique ID that is assigned to me when I registered myself with something known as portal.azure.com. So I'll just copy this out, set it in here, and this is my tenant ID. This is how it will look like. It's a unique alphanumeric number. It's an alphanumeric characters out here that Microsoft goes ahead, assigns it out to you, and whenever you are logging in from your laptop into something called portal.azure.com, you are logging in inside this particular tenant. And each and every one of you, if you go ahead and let's say create accounts, right? Each and every one of you would have a unique tenant ID. You'll have, let's say, this particular tenant ID to be unique, which means if you are working for an organization, each and every organization will have a unique tenant ID of its own out here as such. Now, after a tenant ID, now tenant ID was pretty much simple. You went ahead, registered yourself with Azure, got a tenant ID as such. But now I am telling that if you want to use the services of Azure, if you want to start using the services of Azure, you will need something known as an Azure subscription, which goes by this particular, let's say, symbol called Azure subscription out here as such. Again, for you to create a subscription, you need to have a pre-existing tenant. You need to have someone known as or something known as a pre-existing tenant out here as such. So without a tenant, you cannot create a subscription. The very first thing that you create is a tenant. After that, we go ahead and create something called as what? A subscription out here. Again, how do you create a subscription? So yesterday we said you had something called start free out here. You clicked on that. Or if you don't have a start free, just click on the search window here and say subscriptions. Just type in subscriptions. You will get subscriptions with the symbol. In my case, I already have a subscription out here. In your case, if you go into subscription, you do not have any subscriptions and so on. You can say add, and once you add this out, it's going to check for your eligibility, and it's going to tell you what are all the different subscriptions that you have the access to go ahead and create to. It'll tell what are all the different things that you have access out there and etc. And yes, again, it's telling in order to view this, you have to go to the parent directory and all that stuff. Like I have multiple directories out here. That's the reason it's not letting me create this out. So let me come back. But in your case, you'll have things like a free trail, something called as a paid account, and so on and so forth. So what I want you all to do is register for a free account out here. Now, as and when you hit the free account, Azure will tell you, okay, fine, as you saw in the yesterday's session, it'll tell you, okay, fine, I'll sign you up, and it's going to ask you details like your name, your email address, phone number. You should verify your phone number out there. Then your let's say address. Again, as we have seen yesterday, you can just give address as Hyderabad or something like Hyderabad, Secunderabad or something, and get, I mean, move forward with that. And after that, it's going to ask you for organization. Just give any organization name, anything, Microsoft, ABC, ABCD, whatever it is. PAN ID, I'm asking you all not to give a PAN, not a problem at all. You don't give a PAN at all as such. And once that's done, you say sign up. And once you sign up, it'll ask you for details like your credit card information, where it's going to tell you that what is the card number, card name, CVV, and also let's say the expiration. Once you give all that particular information, Azure is going to send you an OTP to your mobile number and charge you 2 rupees to see whether the card is valid or not. And once the process is done, if you come back and go to your home screen, search for something called subscriptions. And if you are successfully registered, here you will be able to see something called as a free trial. You'll say what is a free trial, and then it's saying something like the ID of the subscription out here. It'll tell you the role, it'll tell you something like the cost, and very importantly, the subscription status. It should be active. So whenever you create a subscription, the status of it is active. Again, a free trial, as the name indicates, it's free in nature. So you don't have to really pay anything out here. And also, if you, let's say, I mean, this is free for, let's say, about 30 days. Let's put this in, and let's say types of subscriptions out here. I'll say free trial. This is free for the first 30 days out here. Free for the very first 30 days. So if you register today, next month, around 23rd of, let's say, October, that's when your subscription will expire. It's a 1 month cycle. Azure subscriptions are always a 1 month cycle out here. And here, in 30 days, Azure, what it's going to do is that for you to go ahead and practice a lot of things, they're going to give you somewhere around 14,000 in the form of credits, non-transferable in nature, which means that if the credits are still remaining after 30 days, they'll get lapsed. If your credits gets expired before the 30 days, your account will go into disable state. So these credits is what Azure gives you for the first 30 in order to start using their services. So whenever you start using Azure, Azure will charge you on an hourly basis. Let's say you create a service. Let's say the service cost is around 5 rupees per hour. You run the service for 2 hours. That will cost you around 10 rupees. Those 10 rupees will be deducted from these 14,000 out here. And the rest balance would be reflected out there as such, around 13,000 something, some change out there. So these 10 rupees will go ahead and get deducted from these particular 14,000. And this 14,000, is it sufficient for the entire month? Yes, it is more than sufficient. You will not even use half of it. You will not even actually use half of it out here. So what I would suggest is just create one free account, share it amongst you all. It shouldn't be a problem at all. It's no harm. You can share it with your friends so that the next month someone else will can, kind of share it with you. In that way, you will be able to, let's say, cover this free trial for the entire course curriculum out there. Because you need about 2 free trial subscriptions to cover the course. Or after the free trial, we'll talk about what will happen and all that stuff out there. Yes, any questions still here? Any questions on how do you create a subscription? What do you need to create a subscription and etc.
So, Kiran, once we create the subscription and under the tenant ID, so the same subscription can be used by multiple persons at the same time? Like, in the two
Yes.
laptops, I can open.
Definitely not in two laptops. Even if you have 2,000, 200,000, you can open the same subscription. So there is no
Okay.
limit on how many people can actually connect to one particular subscription. What organizations usually do is like this: you have a tenant. I'm an organization. I created a tenant for myself. I created a subscription. All the employees will be now added to the same subscription out there, so that each and every one can get their own individual logins. Will also see how to add people and etc. And everyone can log in and connect to the same subscription. So yes, multiple people can log into the same thing out there at the same time.
Thank you.
Yes, any more questions here, guys? Anyone?
Is that
Yeah, Kiran.
14,000 subscription coins has been detected while you are using in 30 days?
I'm sorry, can you come again, please?
That 14,000 bounties is there no? Once you
Hmm.
have logged in with the free subscription.
Yes,
Is that coins has been detected from them while using in 30 days?
yes. This will be deducted while you are using 30 days. Again, these are credit points that are associated with you. It is it is no nothing to do with your credit card. Your credit card will not even be charged 1 rupee.
Yes.
Everything will be charged from these particular 14,000 points out here that you get.
Oh,
Yeah, Kiran, this is Ren.
Yes, any more questions here? Okay,
Regarding the
go ahead, please.
subscriptions, so it's like a
Hmm.
shared folder. No?
Sorry, it's like, sorry, can you come again, please?
Is it like a shared folder, or do you share permission to other users like that?
Yes, kind of. You can tell that it is like a shared folder. Yes, that's true. You can share it among multiple users with different kind of access levels with each and every user out there. Yes, any more questions here? What is the cost for, okay, what is the cost for paid one? Depends upon the usage. What is the cost for a postpaid mobile phone? Simply depends upon the usage. Sorry, can you come again, please? Mm-hmm. How you need to pay for that? So when you are signing up for Azure subscription, very importantly, you are giving a credit card information. So that credit card information will be, let's say, considered as your billing details. So on a monthly basis, yes. So Azure subscriptions are on monthly basis only. So at the end of the month, they go ahead and charge it on the credit card. Again, it is not that how much, let's say, per hour they are going to charge. It is what you are exactly using. There are instances. See, the point is that when you go for an Azure subscription, free trial is free in nature. The next subscription that comes in, which organizations normally use, it's called, sorry, let's take this out, it's called pay as you go. Free is for us to go ahead and, let's say, use this out. It's called pay as you go. And pay as you go subscriptions in Azure, it's like a postpaid connection. No expiration at all. There is no expiration whatsoever, but charged on a monthly basis based on the usage. Based on, let's say, the usage out here. So the question was, is there a, let's say, minimum cost what they'll charge? No, there's no minimum cost what they'll charge. But if I use it, how much will I be charged? Now I have a pay as you go subscription. So let me go ahead switch my directory. I'll tell you what I'm doing in a second. So I have multiple tenants that I'm a part of. Like, I'll basically go ahead and show you why basically I'm a multiple tenants part of, etc. I have multiple tenants out here. So for example, this subscription is a paid subscription out here. This is something that I pay for. And this subscription, over the last, let's say, 30 days, it did not even charge me anything out there. But doesn't mean that it's the same again. For example, this is something that I've been using over let's say a longer period of time. So if you look at the billing basically that I have done, it is not more than 200 or 300 rupees per month, because uh, again, I know how to use this. I know how to delete the resources once I use this out here as such. But there are instances of people who just created a pay-as-you-go subscription and they were cost about 60,000 to 70,000 rupees per month also. Again, there is no maximum limit, there is no minimum limit. You can get charged even in lakhs of rupees also as such. It just depends upon what you are using here, what exactly that you're using out here as such. That's the reason I wouldn't suggest you all to go for pay-as-you-go in the very beginning. Just don't go for this. Use a free trail, which is free in nature out there, which makes sure to give you around 14,000 form of credits, and which makes sure that you know what you can use all these credits in that particular 1 month period out there. And since free trial subscriptions can be shared amongst, let's say, a lot of people, you can add multiple people into the same subscription and you can start the practice. You know, when you start the practice out here, multiple people can share the same subscription and then start the practice out here. And that way, you don't have to, let's say, ask anyone for credit card every month on a monthly basis. You don't have to do that. You can share that particular subscription amongst you all out there as such. But again, when I'm coming to an organization, right? As an organization, if I come here, click on add, it's now going to check my eligibility. It's now going to understand what am I eligible for, what kind of subscriptions that I'm eligible for, and it's going to give me a list of subscriptions out there. So let's give it a second and let's see what are all the available list of subscriptions. And if you see here, you have very firstly, it's called what? Free trial. And free trial is not eligible for me. I am not eligible to go for a free trial. See, if you see this, it's telling what? You're not eligible for this offer. Reason being, I have created a free trial long ago on this particular ID. So I cannot do another free trial on top of that. But I can go for something called pay as you go subscription. There is no contract whatsoever. Even if you go for a pay as you go, even if like I'm an organization, I'm going for a pay as you go, I don't have to tell Microsoft that, you know what, I'll use it for minimum 30 days or minimum 60 days. No, I can even use it for 1 hour and disable this out. Shouldn't be an issue. So pay as you go is like a no commitment subscription out here that you have, wherein you don't have to pay anything upfront. You don't even have to pay even one single rupees upfront. It just purely depends upon what do you use, and at the end of the month, you go ahead and pay for what do you use out here as such. So like free trial has a 30-day expiration period, 1 month. Pay as you go doesn't have an expiration period at all. It's like a postpaid connection out there. Every month you go ahead and pay for what you use out there as such. Is it? It's not auto debit. Earlier it was, but with the RBI's new guidelines, they're not doing the auto debit out here. You need to pay for it. So when you go ahead and pay for it, right again, it'll ask you for CVV and it'll also ask you for the OTP. So you'll have to give those both informations and then it'll go ahead and let's say charge you on your card out there as such. So it's not auto debit as such out here. Yes. Any
If we
questions?
if we not
Mhm.
pay,
If you do not pay, simply your subscription will get disabled status. So your subscription will go into a disabled status out here as such.
thank you.
So right now, if you see, right, the subscription status is active. If you don't pay anything, the subscription will go into a disabled state.
Yeah, actually, I didn't pay for Amazon, and I got a mail from Amazon that we hate you. I didn't pay it.
Hmm.
So similar like that.
Similar to like that, yes. Same thing. Most of the cloud providers basically similar to like that, yes. Okay, so I'll take a couple of questions that are there on this particular chat window.
So, is
May
there
I
any
know?
limitation?
Sorry,
Sorry,
go ahead, please.
is there any limitations between the free trial, pay as you go, and Azure for students? Is there any limitations like futures?
Azure for students, I'll come to that on what Azure for students is. Free
Okay.
trial, is there any limitation? Yes, there is a limitation. Meaning, let's say free trial again free in nature, so you will not have access to all the services. Like all the Azure services, there is a little bit of limitation. For example, there is a service called virtual machine. So in a pay-as-you-go subscription, you can create a virtual machine in any region. You can say, okay, fine, I'll create it in India or I'll create it in US, whatever it is, you can create it. But in a free trail, you can only create it in limited regions. There is a limitation there. So each and every service that is in a free trail will give you a particular limitation so that you don't exceed that particular limit. In a pay as you go, there is no limit as such. You can create anything anywhere. There's no one is going to ask you anything. In a free trail, you will have that particular regional limitation. That's the only difference. I'll tell you what is Azure for students as well. There's something called Azure for students, and there's a lot of subscriptions that is available out there. We'll also talk about those things as such. Okay, so there is one question in the chat that may I know after 30 days any amount will be debited from a credit card? No, there won't be any amount that is debited from your credit card. Your subscription will go into an or an auto disable state. Before creating a subscription, should we create give credit card details? No. For creating a tenant, you don't have to give your credit card details. Only while creating a subscription, that's when you'll have to give your credit card details. Any questions based on subscriptions in the exam? Not really. It's very basic. Again, subscriptions are very basic in nature. So you will not get a lot of questions based on subscription in the exam out here. But after subscriptions, meaning you'll have to firstly understand what is a subscription, and based upon that, you have other services. Depending upon, let's say, those services, your questions will, let's say, come into the exam as such out there. Okay. Okay. Hmm. Okay. Yes. See, very simply, the question here is that, see, we created, let's say, some resources in the Azure portal for practice. If we don't delete it, if we keep it for a longer period of time, very simple. You have the light here. Switch the light on. Leave it for 30 days. Don't use it. Will the electricity department come down to you and tell that, you know what, you did not use it, I won't charge? They'll charge you still because you've used that particular electricity. Same thing. Azure also is the same. If you have to delete after practicing, yes, you have to delete a service after, or you have to delete a service, yes, after practicing, so that the credits won't be debited, so that you can use that credits for a longer period of time. And the reason I'm telling that is that tomorrow, if you, let's say, tell that, okay, fine, I want to practice more and I want to go for a pay as you go subscription, you can carry the same habit forward. You can say, I used for 1 hour, I'll delete it, so that you're charged, right? See, I've been using the same pay as you go subscription since the last 7 8 months right now. The charge that I paid per a month never went above 250 rupees. It's like not even a cost of a movie ticket, right? So it never went above that particular rupees out there. But you have to be a little careful while using pay as you go as such. All right, so let's go here and say add. I'll again, go to this page. Let's look at the subscriptions out here. Let's look at the different kind of subscriptions that are available out there and the most popular types that we normally use. So for now, we are using, or for this particular demo, we are using free trail. Whatever we are doing in a free trail. But as an organization, we would go ahead and start using something called as a pay as you go subscription. But apart from that, you have multiple things out here. Azure sponsorship, Visual Studio Enterprise subscription, Visual Studio, let's say, professional subscription. You have a lot of things out here. Azure and Open. There are a lot of subscription that Azure really offers out there. One of the popular questions that I normally get is that, you know what, Azure for students. We are students also. Do we get this? Do we get to avail this? Because Azure for student, right? It gives you 12 months of, let's say, free usage. 12 months of free usage with 10,000 credits for entire 12 months. You get around 20, let's say 10,000 credits out here. But unfortunately, this is not for us. This Azure for students is not for us. When they say Azure for students, it is students who are studying in universities who have Azure or cloud engineering as a part of their curriculum. So the university registers, let's say, with Azure, tells them that this is our student, and if that particular student comes here with that particular student email ID. So if you're studying in a university, you'll get a student email ID, right? Using that email ID, you can register with Azure, which means that if you have someone, a relative or a brother or a sister who's studying abroad in some university, you can take their ID and, let's say, get registered with Azure out there as such. Even that is possible. You can simply take that, get registered with Azure, you can start your journey that way as such. And also there are other types of subscriptions, which is something called Visual Studio Enterprise subscription, which I am using. So if I go into my subscription out here, the subscription type that I am using for my regular demos is a Visual Studio Enterprise subscription, and this gives me around 10,000 credits per every month. I don't have to pay anything. Reason being, I'm a Microsoft certified trainer, and as a part of the certification program, they go ahead and give all the trainers this particular, let's say, free subscription so that we can do there as such. What we are looking right now is these two things. For our curriculum, these are the two things basically that we are stuck on to, which is free trial around 14,000, pay as you go, which is on purely a usage basis on how do you use it, how do you pay for it, and all that stuff. And this is a monthly billing cycle. Pay as you go is always a monthly billing cycle out here that you have. Yes, any questions that I can take till you? Anyone? Any questions that I can take till here? All right. So one more thing is that let's talk a little bit about pay as you go. Understand how an organization actually treats this. I'm an organization. I'm a very big company. I've done or I've taken something called as a pay as you go subscription. Now the question what the organization can ask you or what a client can ask you is that, you know what, you registered me on a pay as you go subscription. I am not using it for the 30 days. I'm not only, I mean, I have never used it. I've never even, I created it, but I've never used anything. Will I be charged? Will I be
Yes.
really charged out here?
No,
Yes.
because
No.
we didn't use
No.
anything.
We did not use anything. Anyone? Yes, no. What do you all feel? No. The answer should be no, but it is both yes and no. Will I be charged anything? Then the answer is yes.
Yes,
If
it initially charge 2 rupees and it again give it us back, right?
I'm sorry, that's a 2 rupee charge. That is only for a
Can
free
you
trial.
say it?
But for a
Okay.
pay as you go, they won't charge anything. The pay as you go for registering a pay as you go, they won't charge anything out there. But why did I say a yes here? Will I be charged? Yes. If
Minimum amount.
you have opted for a support plan. Every Azure subscription comes with something called as a support plan out here. Why do you need a support plan? Very simple. Uh, it's very simple. Your mobile is not working. What do? Call to the customer care. You tell that the mobile is not working. And if your mobile is under warranty, what they'll do, they'll repair it, give it to you without charging anything out there as such. If your mobile is not under warranty, what they'll do, they'll charge something, they'll repair it and give it to you. So when you're buying something, right, you're not only buying the product, you're also buying some support along with the product that you have. Azure also treats you the same way. Azure tells you that, you know what, over, let's say, your journey, over your products and etc., you'll be using this cloud. You'll be creating multiple services. What if you get issue on a service? You have a lot of issues. A lot of issues can actually get on, let's say, when you work on cloud. When you get an issue with a product that you're using, who do you contact in this case? Who do you want to contact in this case out here? If you're using Azure, you get an issue. Who do you contact? Support
Microsoft
team. Support team of Microsoft. Exactly. You reach out to the support team of Microsoft. Microsoft will now tell, okay, fine, what kind of a support plan you have. So let's come down to support plans. So let's go there. And here in my search window, I'll say support. You have what? Help plus support. A support plan applies to a particular subscription. I'll say overview, and let's see. Here it says choose the right plan. Just click on this. A support plan applies to a particular subscription. In my case, my subscription, which is called Visual Studio Enterprise subscription, is coming up with a basic support plan which costs me 0 rupees. So the answer here is that if you are using a basic support plan, then it is no. You're not going to charge anything. They're not going to really charge you anything if you have something called as a basic support plan out here. No, if it is a basic support plan. So no charge at all. But as an organization, right, I want 24/7 support. If something goes wrong, I want someone to help me out. So Azure tells you that, you know what, I give you 3 different support plans that you have. By default, any subscription comes with a basic support plan. Very basic in nature. You can send emails to Microsoft. Microsoft will respond back to you in like about 2 business days. So in a basic support plan, they'll tell you know what, we will respond back in 2 days, 48 hours with your email, because that's what your plan is. And also the response is very basic. It's like a very basic support out there that you get, like very basic guidance and all that stuff. Then you have developer support is telling that, you know what, if you have an issue, Microsoft will respond back within 8 hours. They'll tell you know what, I'll come back to you within 8 hours out here, but it's going to charge you around 29 or $30 per month, which is, if I calculate it with today's cost, 80 rupees, let's take 80 rupees calculation, it'll become 2,400 rupees per month. So if you are in a developer support plan, even if you are not using a subscription for a single day, you still have to pay around what, 2,400 rupees per a month for using that particular plan, or for enrolling for that particular plan out here. Then you have standard support. Standard support, Microsoft is telling that, you know what, in a particular standard support, we will make sure, depending upon the criticality of your issue, Microsoft says your issue can come under 3 different categories: severity A, severity B, severity C. Depending upon that, we will give you in severity C 8 business hours, severity B 4 business hours, and severity A 1 hour. I'm not telling 1 business hour, I'm telling 1 hour, which means even on a Sunday, if you have an issue, go raise the ticket, you'll immediately get a call. It's a 24/7 support. Developer and basic are not 24/7. They are on a business day. If you have a holiday that day, support is not available. If you have a, let's say, Sunday, Saturday, support is not available out there. Standard and something called as professional direct, these are 24/7 supports out there. So if you look at standard support, cost is around what, $100. This is what, $1,000 out here, which means 8,000 and 80,000 rupees per month. Big organizations, right, who are using Azure, they fall under this category, a professional direct support plan. Even though they're not using it, they go for a professional direct out here, telling that, okay, fine, you know what, we need this kind of a support, so that in case something goes wrong in the organization, I want someone to directly go ahead and help me out. Someone to directly come onto the call, help me out, resolve this particular issue. So depending upon the support plan, your cost is actually getting calculated. So now in a basic plan, if I don't have anything, if I'm not using, I'll get charged, or I won't get charged anything. And if I'm using something, I will only get charged for something that I use. In a standard developer and a professional direct, it is the support plan plus what you're using. Let's say I'm using about 1,000 rupees. I have done a 1,000 rupees bill. So in a basic or in a developer plan, it'll be 1,000 plus 2,400 rupees. That is the bill that I'll pay. So depending upon the support plan, your billing will also change. So if someone asks you, will pay as you go charge you? Then you should, in counter question, ask, what kind of a support plan do you have? Do you have a basic? Do you have a developer? Do you have a standard? Do you have a professional direct? Depending upon that, I can tell you what you are using, what is the bill that you get out here accordingly out here as such. Yes. Any questions till here? Anyone? Any questions till here that I can take? Anyone? Anything till you? All right. So we have this. So tenant here is represented by this particular diagram. Like Azure Active Directory or tenant here is represented by this diagram. and we have a subscription under a tenant. So you have a tenant, you have a subscription, and you have a support plan for that particular subscription. In my case, I'm using a basic support plan out here, and in my case, I'm using something called as a Visual Studio Enterprise subscription. So it's a Visual Studio Enterprise subscription that I'm using. Now, one question that I have is that let's say you created a free trial subscription. I have a free trial subscription right now. So, so let's say in the next class, you'll start beginning creating all these free trial subscriptions and etc. My question is that under the same tenant, can I add one more free trial subscription? Can I do that? Can I go for and add, let's say, one more free trial out here? No,
Yes.
no,
Yeah, after
yes.
30 days.
After 30 days, can I do
After,
that? Okay,
oh, yeah.
yes.
With different credit card, we can do that.
Different credit card. Again, different credit card, different email ID. And as and when you say different email ID, your tenant also changes. As and when you do a different email ID, your tenant ID, everything kind of gets changes. Which means under the
200
same
days.
tenant, yes, under the same tenant, for one time, you can only get one free trail subscription at any given point in time. You cannot go ahead and add one more free trail. You cannot do this. But let's say I'll put it in a different way. I have a pay as you go. I'm an organization. I created a pay as you go subscription. Can I add one more pay as you go?
Yes.
Meaning, yes, definitely yes. Pay as you go. Or I can add any different type of subscription. Like let's say Visual
Free
Studio
trial.
Enterprise. Let's say an enterprise subscription or a professional subscription. Any kind of a subscription I can add here. Enterprise. Any kind of a subscription that I can add here. Provided the subscription is not free trial. Free trial is only once per, let's say, a particular tenant. After that, you cannot go ahead and, let's say, register yourself for a free trial. Which means under one tenant, you can have multiple subscriptions, and this is called as a multi-subscriber model. But model, it can be something known as a multi-subscriber model out here. Now the question here can be, you know what? Why do we even need multiple subscriptions? In one subscription, you can actually go and create everything. All you need is one tenant and one subscription. That's it. You can go start using Azure out there. The question here then is that, you know what? Then why do we even need multiple subscriptions? Why do we even need to go for multiple subscriptions out there?
We
And
have a
do companies do
multiple
this? Good, please.
multiple departments, multiple modules under the same organization. So it comes in,
Yeah,
say,
multiple
one
departments.
umbrella.
Yes. One to an umbrella. Yes. So, yes, that's right. The thing here is what they're trying to explain is this. Let's say you have a company called Tata. So, what Tata did is that they said, okay, fine, you know what, we want to move into cloud. We have multiple things like, our businesses and etc. We want to move all those businesses into cloud so that people across the world can use this and I can also reduce the cost and all that stuff. So, Tata said, okay, fine, Azure, I will come into cloud. I'll register. And the very first thing Tata registers is something known as a tenant ID. So Tata gets a tenant ID out here. So Tata says, okay, fine. Now the problem that Tata is facing is that, you know what? I have three different companies under me. Like there's a company called Tata Motors. It's a child company of Tata only. Then there's a company called Tata Finance. Then there's a company called Tata Capital. There are multiple companies or there are multiple subsidiary companies under Tata. So Tata is telling, you know what? See, at any given point in time, if you are an employee of Tata Motors called employee 1, if I add you to the Azure portal, how do I add? We'll talk about that. What is user addition? How do you manage users and etc. We'll talk about it. But if you go ahead add a user, says employee1 at the rate tatamotors.com. This employee should only have the access to the subscription of Tata Motors. Employee 2, who is a part of Tata Finance, should only have the access to Tata Finance. Employee 3, who is a part of Tata Capital, should only have the access to what? Tata Capital out here. Which means, though I want all these three companies to fall under one tenant, I want to establish a separation between one subscription and the other. In that case, you go for multiple subscriptions out here. You don't do one subscription, you do multiple subscriptions out here, and then accordingly you can go ahead and add users. You can say user 1 will only have access to this particular subscription, user 2 is only going to go ahead and have access to this particular subscription, and user 3 is only going to go ahead and have access to the third subscription out here. In that way, you will be able to establish a watertight separation between multiple people or multiple users inside your organization, and you can tell, you know what, this person will only have access to this particular subscription, this person will only have access to this subscription, person 3 will only have access to this particular subscription out here. So this is the watertight separation why Azure tells you to go for multiple subscriptions under the same tenant. Again, let's say that this subscription is charging you 100 rupees, or there is something like 100 rupees cost that you have. Here you have 100, here also you have 100. The tenant is going to pay all this charge. The tenant is going to now pay 300 because under his, let's say, tenant, there are three subscriptions. We're giving him 100, 100, and 100 each. And the tenant is going to go ahead and pay the charge for it, telling that, okay, fine, this is what it is, and etc. Yes, someone had a question. I'm sorry. Again, this doesn't necessarily have to be Tata Motors, Tata Steel, and Tata Finance. Let's say the tenant itself is Tata Motors. Inside that, you have multiple teams. Let's say you have a development team, you have a HR team, you have a DevOps team, you have a QA team. Tata Motors is telling each and everyone should have their own individual subscriptions. So you can also do that. You can say developer has only access to the developer subscription. You can say DevOps has only access to the DevOps subscriptions, and etc. So subscriptions or multiple subscriptions out here is just to make sure you have a watertight separation. Meaning, user in one subscription should not check the resources that are there in the other subscription. If you want to establish this, you can go for multiple subscriptions under the same tenant. Again, is there a charge to create multiple subscriptions? No, there is no charge. You can have literally hundreds of subscriptions under the same tenant. And if you are using a basic model, and if you're not using any subscriptions, there is zero charge whatsoever out there as such. Yes, any questions till here? Anyone? Any questions till here that I can take? Okay. Okay. Yes. Two subscriptions. Okay. Mhm. Okay. You can do that. Yes, you can do that. Again, as simple as this is. I'll just go there into my organization. Now, this is not the parent organization that I'm part of. So just give me a second. So I already have a subscription called A. This is the organization. This is a part. This is, let's say, the tenant that I'm part of. So if you click on this one, it's a different tenant that I'm part of. Do you see? It is 140 something like this. And the tenant ID that I was looking at earlier is what? 27 something. So this is a different parent organization that I'm a part of. Under this, I only have one subscription called Azure Classes. If I want to add one more, I'll simply click on add. It'll check for the eligibility. I can go ahead and add one more subscription called Pay As You Go, give my credit card information, and then go ahead and get this done. So yes, under one tenant, you can have multiple subscriptions out here. But yes, You can use a single credit card. Yes, you can use a simple single credit card out here and register all the let's say all the subscriptions out there as such. The single credit card issue will only come into picture when you have a free trial. So if you use a free, let's say credit card, register yourself for a free trial, you cannot use the same credit card and register another free trial out there. That's the only limitation. But if you are going for a multi-tenant model or multi-subscriber model, wherein it's telling you have one pay-as-you-go, you can use the same credit card here, you can use the same credit card, you can use the same credit card here. So that's the equation out here. Is that under one tenant, you can have more than one subscriptions, but at any point, one subscription cannot be shared by two tenants. One subscription can only and only be under one particular tenant at any given point in time. You cannot go ahead and share the subscription out there, but you can transfer the ownership of your subscription. You can say, I want to transfer the ownership, which means if I just come and click on subscription, so I am on subscriptions. If I click on subscriptions, there is something called transfer billing ownership. This is something that you can do. You can say, what is the recipient's email? You can go ahead and say, okay, fine, send transfer request. The recipient will get a transfer request. They will have to accept it. They'll have to give the OTP. When will this come into picture? You have two different companies, they've merged together. Tata acquired a different company. Now let's say they want to transfer the ownership to Tata out there. So in that cases, Azure will also allow you to go ahead and transfer subscriptions or transfer the ownership of the subscriptions under multiple tenants. But at any given point in time, one subscription can at the max be under one tenant. You cannot have one subscription under multiple tenants out here as such. Yes, any questions still here? Anyone? Any questions that I can take till here? Okay, let's check this out. Two numbers are using the same credit card. They cannot. Simple. They simply cannot. Two numbers using same credit card also is not possible. You will need a new email ID. You will need a new number. You will need a new credit card out there. So you need all these three to be changed if you want to create a new free trail subscription out there. Such. They are going to use again. The organizations will have a different kind of a tie-up with Azure. So they will have a direct bank deduction with Azure out there. Mhm. No, the billing amount will not be shared if you transfer the ownership. The question is that if you transfer the ownership, will the billing amount be shared? No. The billing amount will completely be transferred to you. So I have a subscription. I'm transferring the ownership to you. Whatever I use, you have to pay. That's how it is. Yes. Any more questions, guys? Anyone? Any more questions that I can take till you? Anyone? Any more questions? Okay, let's check this out. Okay, Longback created Azure tenant but not created a subscription. Whether it will allow you to create a free trail? Yes, it will allow you to create a free trail, provided you haven't even touched a free trail till now. So long back, if you have an Azure tenant, that's not a problem. You can still take the same Azure tenant and start a free trail with that. So it shouldn't be a problem. Sorry, can you come again, please? In free trail? Yes. Yes. No. Only single tenant and a single sub. Yes. Yes. You can use multiple. Correct. You have to do one after the one. That's correct. You'll have to do one tenant after the other in the first 30 days after. Yes. Any more questions, guys? I'm sorry. Are under one tenant. Yes. Mhm. Yes. So how can you restrict a person? We'll check that. We'll see in user management. So that's the next concept that we are going into. On how do you add users? How do you allow a user for a particular subscription, and what kind of a permission you give a particular user out there? So again, in the yes, administration roles out there. So again, that's the intention. I just won't want to, let's say, give you let's say the full, let's say, thing in the first two classes out there. It'll become a little overwhelming. So I'm trying to, let's say, make sure that we understand the basic terminology and what a tenant is, what a subscription is, what is the charge for a subscription, etc. And from Monday, since we do not have a class on Saturday and Sunday, from Monday we'll start with the core of Azure on how do you how do basically you do user managements, how do you go ahead and add multiple people, restrict them, and how do you start with resources and etc. is going to start from Monday. And I would request you all that after Monday's class you start creating subscriptions in Azure, because from Monday we'll start with practicality. Until now it's only theory. From Monday's class we'll begin with the actual practicality on how do you create users, how do you add users, and etc. From then I would request you all to please go ahead, create subscriptions so that you can follow along closely with the class. Okay. Yes, any more questions before I close?
So Kiran, like under Tata Motors tenant, I taken a pay as you go subscription, and
Okay.
initially I taken as a pay as you go. Now, while adding another subscription for the first time, can I add a free trial subscription if I haven't used 30 days free trial?
Yes, you can do that.
Okay.
That's not a problem. You
Once I
can do that.
use the free trial for one time, I cannot use that, right? And later,
Exactly.
next time, second time. Okay. First time
Exactly.
it will allow. Okay.
First time it is allowed.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Any more questions, guys?
Does free trial have any limitations to access services?
Yes, free trial will have a couple of limitations to access services. As I said, there are only a few regions where you can create your resources. But can I practice everything, all the sessions with that particular limitation? Yes, shouldn't be an issue. So all the classes
Okay.
that we do are, we can, it's good enough. We have a free trail and we can practice all those sessions out there in a free trail subscription out there. Yes, you will face a limitation that you cannot create a resource in, let's say, a particular region, but alternatively, you can use a different region and create it out. Not a problem.
Okay, thank you.
No, no, no. No, there's no limitation as such. All right, so that's it from my end, guys. So we'll meet on Monday. We'll start with the core of Azure. So from Monday, please make sure that you arrange a credit card for yourselves and start creating a subscription on Monday. Don't create it on a Saturday and Sunday. You'll won't be using it anyways. Create it on a Monday, and we'll start with the let's say the core of, let's say, Azure basics of it. Thank you and have a good day.